spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Happy, what is today? Thursday. Man, my days are all mixed up because the lawmakers are not meeting today. They're on spring break. I'm not on spring break. I'm right here about to deliver you the news. Joe's right here with me. I'm not on spring break. I'm about to tell you about socialism in Arkansas. I'm about to tell you how Conduit News is, at this point, I think the only thing, one of the only things at least, defending free market capitalism and trying to defend the people from bigger government, trying to point out where got Republicans pursuing, quite frankly, just socialist policy. I mean, we're on the road to serfdom. And we have people that won't cut spending. We got people that refuse. That they're telling us to believe them when they say, well, there's just nowhere to cut. If we give a tax cut here, we have to have a tax increase over here. We have to. Of course, we knew this 2 years ago when they floated the idea of just giving the military retirement tax cut. Governor Asa Hutchinson said it wouldn't be conservative to just absorb that cut. And it was negligible. I mean, it was like 12, 13 million. And, of course, now we covered this on the program yesterday. State Representative John Payton got his bill overwhelmingly out of the House. And there was only one no vote to raise the carve-out, if you will. And I'm sure somebody somewhere could be philosophically opposed to a carve-out, but right now, if you buy a used vehicle, you don't pay a sales tax if it's below $4,000, and they want to raise that $7,500, which I think is good. And but of course, it's $12 million hit to the budget. They're going to say, and they're going to say you got to pay for it. You got to raise taxes somewhere else, John. You got to raise taxes somewhere else, House. And, we'll see what happens in the Senate. You need to call your senators if you want this to become a reality. Full disclosure, I may or may not be in the market for a used vehicle. Telephone number 870-275-9799. I'm drinking Alka-Seltzer, cold and flu, daytime remedy or whatever. And I've got to drink this stuff. It's pretty sweet, and if it gets cold, it's going to be gross. So you have to excuse me. I may be taking some pauses here as I drink from the Conduit News mug, conduitnews.com mug. You see that there? You can get that if you just go to conduitnews.com and click on shop. All right, so yesterday, what happened yesterday? They passed the internet sales tax out of committee, out of the Revenue and Tax Committee. Now, I was not in the room. Had I known they were going to be passing the internet sales tax yesterday out of the Senate Revenue and Tax Committee, I would have been there because I would have wanted to see what was said. Of course, they do have video. I've gone back and watched some of it. Interestingly enough, I thought I remembered reading Senator Bart Hester saying he wasn't going to run the bill until next week. I thought that was the case, and apparently it ran yesterday, so there you go. Interestingly enough, now maybe this was by design, maybe that's why you run it yesterday, maybe not, I don't know. It seems to me there was very little discussion on the merits of taking more money from the people in the form of an internet sales tax at all. Instead, there was more discussion on the corporate reforms. There was an amendment added to where instead of the carryover period for net operating loss being 20 years, the way the bill was originally written, they amended it to be 10 years, so they lowered that. Right now it's 5. And then they want to lower over a period of time, I think not until 2021, they want to lower the corporate tax rate from down, let's just say down to 5.9%. So, you know what I've realized is there's going to be, you know how they all want to simplify the tax code, they want to simplify the tables and everything else. Well, in order to judge what this General Assembly has done, we're going to have different tables. What do I mean by that? Well, think about it. They're going to claim in all of their literature and all of their propaganda that they've somehow reduced government, but it's reductions that haven't actually happened yet. Oh, that tax, the income tax rate will be 5.9%, in 2022. Oh, the corporate income tax will be 5.9% in 2021, okay? The $200 million tax increase, well, we won't know what the voters decide on that until 2020. Yet we've referred it to the voters. You see what I'm saying? Like there will be, if you take away that, see, and I bet they'll count the stuff that's good in the column, in the tax cut column, that hasn't happened yet, but won't count the stuff that's bad that hasn't happened yet. Nevertheless, they still voted to they still voted to have the people vote for a brand new sales tax to fund your roads, because it is a new tax, because the old tax is set to expire by law and will if we vote against the sales tax increase. Again, 870-275-9799. I don't know. You can probably hear the frustration in my voice. Coming up, I'm going to introduce you at 7 o'clock to a business owner that I got to meet yesterday, and she's absolutely fantastic. We talked about she's libertarian-minded. Her name is Scout Stubbs. She's a vape shop owner. I think she owns a few of them, franchise it. And we were talking. I was actually sitting next to her in the gallery as Jim Hendren was passing his earned income tax credit bill, which actually barely passed. And there's some questionable votes. I don't know why. I love him to death, Senator Gary Stubblefield, but I don't know why he voted for this bill. I really don't. This bill is a disaster. This bill is a Democrat policy. And not only that, the earned income tax credit is why I oppose it, but I also oppose it for these vape shops. And you still can't, and I know Senator Hendren attempted to say, or he did say, he didn't attempt to say, he did say, look, they're not going to owe all this money come September when the law goes into place. That is not what when you get the attorneys talking, you can't guarantee that. At least that is what I was hearing from the gallery. There was at one point, and during Senator Hendren's remarks, all of the vape shop owners turned and looked around and said, that's socialism. I'm not kidding you. Now, I wasn't prompting them, I promise. But they turned and they said, they were looking around and they were listening to his argument, and they looked around and they said, he's talking about socialism. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, okay, well, small business gets it. These small business owners who own these vape shops, they understand this. They get it. Senator Trent Gardner did an amazing job pointing out why this bill was bad, and it only got 18 votes. I mean, it barely passed. It barely squeaked by the Arkansas Senate yesterday. Now, I don't know if this is going to hold, but I am told that this bill is dead on arrival in the House Revenue and Taxation Committee. That's what I'm told, that there simply is not the votes to get this bill through the House Revenue and Tax Committee. And if that is the truth, I would look for some sort of pressure to be put on Speaker Matthew Shepard to send this bill to the House Rules Committee, which is one of the most secretive committees that there is down there. And they could try to get it out through House Rules and get it to the House floor. And once you do that, you get all the Democrat votes, which is what Jim Hendren got yesterday. And all the Democrats think this is the best thing since sliced bread because it's a policy that they've been wanting for years. Now, the backdrop here, again, in the midst of the Arkansas Democrat Party shrinking. Now, and the Arkansas Democrat Party is not, or the Democrat Party rather, nationwide is shrinking when it comes to state houses. Okay, they're having a very difficult time winning elections at the local level. Democrats just are. They're being rejected at the local level. At a time when Democrats are being rejected at the local level time and time again, the Republican Party primaried the head of the Arkansas Democrat Party, who was a state representative, and beat him. And in that context, now we're going to give the Democrats a giant policy victory in the form of an earned income tax credit welfare program that redistributes the wealth from, taxpayers to the poor. I mean, that's what this is. And it is a welfare program, and not to mention, it actually hurts the very people that they're claiming to help, because they would have you believe they're helping the poor mom, the poor single mom. But if that mom smokes, and a lot of poor people smoke, then this actually hurts them. They end up paying more money. You're actually raising the taxes on poor smokers. Now, I said this a few days ago, but leave it up to Jim Hendren to bring class warfare to Arkansas, where he's now pitting the socioeconomic poor against the socioeconomic poor who smoke. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The only consistent person, as far as I can tell with some of these Republicans' voting records, the only consistent person down there is Senator Jim Hendren. He's pretty much consistently voting against the Republican Party platform. Now, was it late yesterday afternoon or early yesterday afternoon? I think yesterday afternoon, early sometime, the Washington County Republican Party released a press release, or they released a resolution. Hang on a second. Where's my phone? Let me pull this up. Sorry, I don't know what happened. I got congested overnight. I don't know what happened. I don't know. Maybe it was just maybe it's the stress of being in Little Rock and sitting up there and watching these people grow government. Folks, I'm going to be honest with you. Some of these politicians, this sounds so condescending, but I really do believe they have been blinded. I don't know if it is. I think some of these guys don't understand what it is they're doing, number one. And I know that sounds condescending, but that's what I think. Number two, it also is a lot simpler possibly than that. It's just that they're more concerned with how their other fellow senators and representatives think of them than they are the people back home. They're more concerned about their reputation around that building than they are with the people back home, But there's just a lot of it's just blindness. Hang on one second. Oh, by the way, we also have Jan Morgan will be on the program this morning at 7:30. You don't want to miss that. I'd like to talk to her about a few things and get her take. Hang on a second. Where is this? I have it. I had it right here. Here it is. Hang on one second. So the Washington County Republican Committee of Arkansas, they said this. We, the members of the Washington County Republican Committee of Arkansas, on this 19th day of March, believe and affirm our party's state platform, which supports lower taxes, specifically declaring such in 4 of its 9 categories: the principles, the preamble, economic prosperity, and job growth and government reform. Be it resolved that the members of the Washington County Republican Committee hereby instruct its state senators and state House members as direct agents of the people to do everything within their delegated authority to stop any and all attempts to impose increased taxes, whether or not arguable revenue neutral, on Arkansans, including an internet sales tax. Be it further resolved, our elected representatives are directed to vote, work, and act against passage of the following pending and planned legislation. HB 1565 to provide funding for a National Cancer Institute designated cancer center in the state through changes in the laws relating to the sale and taxation of tobacco products, cigarette papers, and e-cigarettes. You see how the title starts out great, but then it's the second or third lines where you realize that's where the tax increases are. SB 571 to create an earned income tax credit and increase standard deduction and an individual income tax reduction, and to provide funding for income tax reductions through new taxes on cigarettes and e-cigarettes. SB 576 to reform the tax laws concerning the levy and collection of sales and use tax, the appointment and allocation of income for tax purposes and net operating losses, and to declare an emergency. SB 447 to increase the homestead property tax credit to maintain funding for current property tax relief, to provide for the use of the excess funding in the property tax relief fund, and declare emergency, meaning they're raiding the property tax relief fund for the general fund. And then they say this: be it further resolved, our elected representatives are directed to vote, work, and act for the passage of the following pending and planned legislation, which is Lanny Fight's bill, HB 1321, to increase the homestead property tax credit and to leave the trust fund alone. Therefore, the chairman of the Washington County Republican Committee shall send or direct others to send a copy of this resolution electronically to the above-mentioned elected officials within 7 business days following its passage, and they approved it, and signed by the chairman, Jim Wilson. So this has gone out, and, I mean, you know, good for Washington County. Good for the Washington County Republican Committee. I'm sure there's other committees. If they knew what was going on, they would feel the same way. This is ridiculous. We have people governing this state like they're carpetbaggers. There, I said it. We've got people in charge who are governing this state like they're carpetbaggers. We got to take a break. It's 870-275-9799. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us today. The phone number 870-275-9799, broadcasting across Arkansas on terrific stations. We really appreciate everybody who's out there listening, but we're also broadcasting on our YouTube channel. Go to Conduit News, subscribe, and click the bell to receive notifications, as well as over at Facebook.com/Conduit News. We are in the middle of our coverage of the 92nd General Assembly. There was a bill that passed out of committee yesterday. This bill would increase the threshold for buying a used vehicle, the price of a used vehicle, and not having to pay the tax, sales tax on a used vehicle. Meaning right now it's lower than one sponsor, State Representative John Payton.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Dennis on Facebook writes, when the state is run as if it's a mafia organization, what will happen to those folks in the Washington County Republican Committee? Well, that's a good question. You know, that's a good question, Dennis. But speaking of mafia, let me let you in on something. So I'm sitting there in the gallery, Senate gallery yesterday, watching Senator Jim Hendren talk like a Democrat. I mean, I'm talking demagoguing the poor. He's talking about how we've given all this tax relief to the upper income, and now it's the lower people that are suffering. And I'm like, Jim, those were all your ideas. Those were all your ideas. If anything has put us in this situation, it's your leadership. Anyway, we're going to get to the audio here in just a minute. So I'm sitting up there next to Scout Stubbs. She's a business owner in the vaping industry, and we're going to have her on the program coming up at 7:05. And she tells me how harmful this tax is going to be on her businesses, how it's going to put people out of business. They're going to have to fire employees. And, of Of course, the elites in the Republican Party, because I'm assuming they don't vape or they look down on people that do, they don't care. They don't care. So if you got to be the right kind of business in order to get the respect of certain Republicans in this state. And so she's sitting there telling me that they were trying to negotiate, talking about mafia. This is a shakedown operation, and they caved. The vaping industry caved. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying they took what they thought was the lesser of two evils, and they proposed to the shakedowners a 2% tax that they were willing to pay. They said, you know what? We know we're going to get taxed at some point. Let's go ahead and we'll do a 2% tax at the point of sale. But let's do it at the point of sale. Let's not do it at the wholesale level. Do it after we've actually sold our product, please. It'll make it easier on us as small business owners. And they claim it'll actually raise more money than what the current proposal is to get to the earned income tax credit and then raise the taxes on cigarettes and vaping shops. And that's flat out rejected. You know, so you mention the state's being run like I mean, that's just the mafia. Then, I mean, there you go. They offered him 2% for the state's protection. And that's essentially what's going on, right? Give us money and we won't. Give us money, we'll offer you protection. And then we got this. Back to the internet sales tax that was very smoothly passed yesterday. And I didn't know it was going to run yesterday, but the internet sales tax passes, and they spent more time. And if you listen to the coverage of it in the Gazette too, they spent more time talking about the car wash provisions that they stuck in the bill than they did actually this idea of marketplace fairness. From what I can tell, I could be wrong, but from what I can tell, there was nobody there that would stand up to these ridiculous arguments and say giving more money to the government in the form of internet sales taxes doesn't help small businesses who are brick and mortar, meaning like it's not going to save Main Street businesses. They keep saying, remember Dan Douglas 2 years ago, we got to save our Main Street businesses. We can either do it or we can just say to hell with it. I really wish he was the one championing this stuff because it would be far more entertaining. But anyway, so you have Senator Hendren. He mentions it. We got to save our Main Street businesses, folks. If you're shopping on the internet now, you're going to continue to shop on the internet and pay the new tax they want you to. And I mean that's just the way. You're not what's going to happen? I mean, this is not about saving Main Street business. If people continue to shop online, Main Street businesses will continue to shrink and go away. So taxing the product is people are still going to shop online because it's convenient. Okay? It's convenient. And so, I mean, if you're a small business owner, a brick and mortar, and you're buying this argument, well, for the purposes of fairness, blah, 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 I'm just letting you know, more money going to the government. Do you have some agreement with them where you're going to get a cut of that money? No. It's going to the government. That's why the government is using people like Jim Hendren. I heard others make the argument in the tax committee. They are using this idea of brick and mortar businesses in order to grow government and get government more money. That's what's going on. We've gone through these arguments before because they tried to get this passed 2 years ago, and there was enough conservatives in the House that pushed back and said no. Telephone number 870-275-9799. We'll bring you live video and audio of the discussion, the narrow passage of an earned income tax credit. Very, very interesting stuff between Senator Jim Hendren and Senator Trent Garner. Trent Garner did a great job standing up for the facts concerning what this really is, even saying that Hendren messed up in his presentation when he used the word redistribute, which he did.
Would want it to be. So this would be a big, huge tax relief for the people out there shopping for used vehicles The sponsor, State Representative John Payton, joins me on the phone now. John, good morning to you.
Good morning. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. I know we've had you on to talk about the idea behind this legislation before. It's good to see this bill getting some movement and getting out of committee yesterday.
Yeah, it is. I really appreciate you having me on this morning. So we did advance it in committee. It'll be on the House floor. We have 82 House co-sponsors, so we should have plenty of votes to get it to the House, and then they'll head over to the Senate. And of course, it's bringing relief. The biggest obstacle we faced is this is not a revenue neutral bill. It actually has a cost. It's going to cut revenue by $12 million. And so, they're asking me, how we're going to pay for it, which is a lot of people's, favorite phrase on cutting taxes. But revenue growth has been robust. From 17 to 18, it was $168 million revenue growth. And over the last 8 years, it's averaged over $100 million a year. So I'm telling them that we're going to pay for it out of revenue growth. And so that's the biggest hurdle we face. And we need people contacting their senators because it just, we tax used cars over and over and over again. And this stops when they reach a value below $7,500. But for the most part, that means that the car's already been taxed 3 or 4 times,
Mm-hmm. So your bill would raise the threshold from where to where?
So currently, when a vehicle reaches a value below $4,000, then we don't tax it. This would raise that to $7,500. So the F&A's estimated revenue impact is $12 million.
State Representative Payton, this entire session, I feel like, has been, I guess, one of the default positions of some is that there is absolutely no way to absorb a tax cut without raising a tax somewhere else.
I really don't know how we fell into that mindset, but that's the truth. I mean, I got elected in 2013, and since I've been there, we've cut on the cutting side $500 million plus, and still our revenue growth is $500 million more in 18 than it was in 13. So, I don't think we have a revenue problem. I think we have a priority problem, but.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back. Yesterday in the Arkansas Senate, they narrowly passed with only 18 votes. Senator Jim Hendren, the governor's nephew, president pro temp of the Senate, an earned income tax credit, a Democrat goal for a long time. All the Democrats voted for it. It would also increase tobacco taxes, and there was a lot of arguments. A lot of Jim's arguments were about the health care costs and Medicaid, and how we have to do this to disincentivize smoking because our health care costs are going out of control. So Jim's answer, to be clear, is less freedom, not getting the government out of socialized medicine, or, not trying to end socialized medicine or stop us from going down the road to more and more government in our health care. That's not his answer. His answer is tax the people. I want you to know everything I have said since 2013, the passage of Medicaid expansion has come true. You want to know why they're raising taxes? You want to know why, if they do raise taxes or they cut taxes here, they got to raise them here? It's because we can't afford the tax cuts. Here's Senator Jim Hendren from yesterday. Listen to this.
Recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, Senate Bill 571, I'm going to go through it, and then I'll explain a little bit about why I think most of you all are familiar with this. So if you got the bill, It starts on page 2 where it creates an EITC trust fund. Before I go through this bill, let me just tell you a little bit of the fundamentals of it. Senator Stubblefield was down here yesterday with the bill, and he said, one of the things that's frustrating around here is many times on pieces of legislation, you end up arguing about the things that are said that are not true more than the facts of the bill. So let me kind of clear up a couple things that are out there. The first thing is that this is a tax increase bill. Every dime that is collected in new taxes is returned to the taxpayers, period. The whole purpose of this trust fund is to make sure that there is a place to collect the revenue so that it can then be redistributed in a responsible way back to the taxpayer.
Pretty sure that's a tax increase, but...
Now, some will say, well, then that's just a shifting of chairs on the deck. And you know what I say to that? Yes, it is. The reason is because the ship is listing very far to one side, and sometimes you need to rearrange the deck chairs or you're going to capsize. And why do I say that? I say that because right now, our Medicaid program, which those of us that served on the Healthcare Reform Task Force know how much it's costing us, illnesses related directly to smoking are costing us $795 million every year in the state of Arkansas. That's a pretty big highway program right there, just because of smoking-related illnesses. You know how much tobacco money is bringing in? 230. So what does that mean? That means everybody else is paying $500 million in taxes to compensate for the costs of health care directly related to the use of tobacco. So what that means to me is it's time to rearrange some deck chairs.
Redistribute. He already said stop.
Stop. And stop it from listing. So
he already said the word redistribute. People are picking up on it. Redistribution of wealth. Okay. Rearranging the deck chairs means redistribution of wealth in this case. And again, giving the Democrats a long-sought policy goal. You know, I was even talking to lobbyists yesterday, and they were just, they can't believe this stuff. Like, they can't believe what's going on right now. You know, there's a lot of lobbyists that assume these because they're Republicans that they're conservative, so it's confusing. All right, keep going here. So Jim Hendren, he really starts to talk like a Democrat here in a minute. Listen to this.
So far towards tobacco. We are one of the most unhealthy states. We have higher rates of tobacco use than the national average. What's going on in our schools with vaping is astounding and somewhat terrifying when you talk to the administrators.
It's terrifying.
Read what happened
terrifying?
With the
kids smoking
FDA
is terrifying.
Folks meeting with
it's terrifying.
Jewel and Altria yesterday. What their comments are about their takeaway from that meeting. What they said basically was they're being dishonest. The industry is being dishonest when they say they're not trying to stop this marketing to kids. So I would argue that it's time to start rearranging the deck chairs.
Redistributing the wealth.
But that is different than saying we're raising tobacco so that we can grow government. It's just not happening.
You're growing dependency on government. The earned income tax credit is about dependency.
The question is, when we begin to rearrange it, where do we put the relief?
When we begin to redistribute the wealth, what do we do with it? Who do we give it to?
Low-income earners, medium and low-income families a priority when we start trying to rebalance the tax load. And I think especially in light of what we've done here in this session, it's appropriate. I've supported the drop in the top rate. It was the third part of an overall tax plan to make Arkansas more competitive. That doesn't change the fact that we took $100 million to drop the top rate, that those making less than $50,000 aren't going to see a dime.
So
we've increased the gasoline taxes.
The Democrat Party. The Democrat Party, everybody.
But you know who percentage-wise that's going to hurt the most? Those making less than $50,000 a year.
Somebody get a fiddle music
going. We're probably going to put the internet tax on. Again, we need to do it. Every other state's going to do it, and if we don't, we're going to lose our Main Street businesses. But who's that going to hurt percentage-wise the most? Low and medium-income families. So the starting point of this piece of legislation is it's time to start putting some of the burden where it needs to be, which is on those that are driving up the cost. So it does that by saying we're going to raise the taxes on tobacco, we're going to start taxing vaping, just like we do tobacco, and we're going to take that revenue and we're going to responsibly give it to low and middle income, let them keep more of their money. We're one of the more aggressive states. That's one of the things we studied and we learned in our tax reform. We have such low property tax, such high sales tax. Again, who does that more impact? Low and medium income families. So we could have taken this $100 million and we could have dropped the top rate some more. We could have done a capital gains tax. We could have done lots of things. But what this bill does, it says we're going to balance the load a little bit, starting by taking the load off of low and middle income families. So how does it do it? It does it with three different ways. The first one is, I want to talk about is on the bottom page 2. It does a standard traditional tax table change, just like the 3 tax cuts that we've done in the last 3 sessions. But it does it on the lowest table. This only applies to those making less than $22,200. And what it does is right now their income from $4,500 to $8,899 is taxed at 2%. And that doesn't seem like a whole lot, but if you're making less than $22,000, it matters. So we take that rate and we drop it to 0%. That one change is only going to help people making less than $22,200, and it's going to have a cost to the budget of $16.7 million. If you go to page 2, we increased the standard deduction from $2,200 to $3,300. That is the most broad-based tax reform piece, and there's 3 things. This one is more broad-based because anybody who claims a standard deduction is going to see an $1,100 increase in their standard deduction, which is going to be $50 to $75 depending on what tax bracket you're in. That one change, which percentage-wise again helps low and middle income families the most, it has a price tag on the budget of $41.7 million. And then finally, the one that seems to be the most controversial is we're going to begin the process of an earned income tax credit program with a cost to the budget of $38.3 million.
Controversial because
that begins on page 3.
A Democrat
that credit
policy.
will begin to accrue in calendar year 2021 and be dispensed in calendar year 2022. And the reason that it is delayed a year is, as I said, the way this program works. Because here's one of the biggest arguments that people use about sin taxes or taxing a revenue source that is declining is, oh my gosh, you're going to cut the taxes, then the usage is going to drop,
Correct.
And now you're going to have a budget crisis.
Correct.
And I will tell you, we had legislators from some states come and explain to us that they had done that very thing, and it's not a great strategy. And we listened. And this bill doesn't do that. What this bill does is says, we're going to wait and collect a year's worth of proceeds, put it in a trust fund. DF&A is going to determine, do we really have the $38 million necessary to fund a 5% EITC? The fiscal impact says they will, and the fiscal impact says they'll have almost twice that the first year that we disperse it. And if it's more, they can increase that EITC above 5. If we have a dramatic downturn in smoking or a dramatic downturn in our economy, they can reduce it. So there is almost a 50% cushion for us not to get our budget into a program, into a pinch. But it also makes sure that those dollars don't find their way into general revenue.
Just turn it down a little bit. I want to read some of these comments.
That's the whole concept
Just
of
turn
this.
it down. Just turn it down. Don't stop
that's the 3 methods.
Let's see here. Add taxes for internet sales, cell phone fees, gasoline taxes, cigarette taxes, and will hurt lower income more.
How is it paid for? If you look on page 4, it says it's paid for with
these,
a new,
he's a darn good Democrat.
excise
Dan
tax
on
of
Facebook
20%
writes.
upon all retail
Listen to
receipts
this.
or proceeds derived from the sale of cigarettes. So depending on what the price of cigarettes is, that 20% can run anywhere from 80 cents to $1.20. The pack of cigarettes are all over the place. We just have a wide range. That is how it is done. If you go over to page number 5, you're going to see the first thing that happens is there is a transfer the first fiscal year of $55 million to general revenue, and that is to pay for those 2 tax cuts that take effect immediately. Beginning in July 2020, you can see that increases to $83.7 million. And this is one of the most interesting parts of this bill because I did not realize this until we started doing the fiscal impact.
Can you feel?
As I started talking to DF&A, we had $55 million in there every year. But
this
one of the
is
things
what
they said is, look,
being nephew
if you put a
feels like right here.
20% tax on cigarettes, you know what's going to happen. People are going to smoke less. That's what's happened in other states. And so what they do in this bill is they project, instead of 140 million packs of cigarettes every year, which is what they're projecting in Arkansas now, This bill is based, and this fiscal impact is based on that dropping to $120 million. The other thing that the fiscal impact takes into account, which I had not thought about, is the piece of legislation that we passed yesterday, Senator Dismaying and Representative Davis's bill that increases the age to 21.
They passed the 911 $16 million tax increase yesterday as well.
That's going to have an impact because of the sales tax.
It was a very busy day before spring break.
Excise tax that's on it now of general revenue. So we had to account for a decline in smoking, which is also going to, on the plus side, what we did not account for is eventually there'll be a decline in health care costs. So that's why it goes up to $83.7 million in July, starting in 2020, and then the future years to make it a revenue neutral with regard to the tax cuts and the decline in use. So the cigarette tax is really the big ticket item. It pays for about 90%, but there is a new tax on e-cigarettes, and that begins the bottom page 5. E-cigarettes mean a vapor or e-liquid product. It is defined. Basically, if you look on the bottom page 5, it says it will be taxed at the same time as taxes on tobacco products or the same rate under the Arkansas Tobacco Products Tax Act of 1977. Now, let me say one more thing that's out there. I got a text right before I came out here that there's still a lot of confusion. I don't know whether it's intentional or unintentional. I really think most of it's unintentional because when I read the legislation, I understand where they get this idea. This is not an inventory tax. This is a tax at the wholesale level. So no shop is going to have somebody show up September 1st and say, I'm assessing you a tax on all the stuff in your inventory. That's not how a wholesale tax works.
That's not what they say.
I confirmed this with DFNA, and I've confirmed it with the Alcohol Tobacco Control Board. You will not have your inventory taxed. That will be clear through rules and regs, and if we need to clarify it more in the legislation, we will.
So it's up to the bureaucracy to make sure. But the bill could
any other sales
make
tax
you believe
like I've been through, and anybody
that you're owed
has been through. They show up and they look for invoices to determine how much you bought, and that's what your sales tax audit is based on. So there is no tax on the inventory. So finally, let me kind of say what the impact of this bill is going to be. And I use this example in committee, and I've kind of worked on the numbers a little bit more.
The two tales of the hypothetical mom, ladies and gentlemen, the single mom.
This money is focused
with two
towards
kids.
Low-income families. So let's look at a low-income family. A single mom with 2 kids works all year for $9.15 an hour, has a gross income of $19,030. The reason I chose that example is because those of you who have problem with the EITC, this is the worst case scenario. What I mean by worst case, maximum credit, maximum refundability. The single mom with 2 kids, she's going to be able to take advantage of the maximum value of this earned income tax credit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what is going to be the effect of this bill? Right now, she's paying sales tax, she's paying property tax that's booked into her rent, she's paying gas tax that just got increased. Currently, under the current law today, if Senate Bill 571 does not pass, she will have $340 in state income tax. Okay? Under this bill, those 2 things that I talked about in this bill are going to kick in. The first one, the rate reduction and the standard deduction increase, is going to save her $125 of that $340. So now she has, like I said, that is going to happen immediately. The second half, once the EITC were to kick in, again, she would be eligible for the maximum amount, which would be $291.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to her? That means she's going to get, I know this is terrifying to some, she's going to get a check for $77. The maximum credit that a single mom with 2 is going to get is a check for $77. So what has happened to her from the beginning to end of this bill? She's gone from a tax burden of $340 to a check of $77. Because of the new tobacco taxes coming there. That's a $420 change in her life situation.
All right. So you've heard the hypothetical. You know what the bill does. Stop it all. Stop it all. Now skip to Trent Gardner. He's just go to the very next thing. Interestingly enough, I don't even know if we're going to be able to see this on camera. So Trent Gardner rises for a question. Let's listen to this.
It's a draft of a new fiscal impact because the original one had this as being a net negative. As of right now, the new fiscal impact hasn't been updated on our system. I don't have it. If somebody here has it, I'd love to see what the actual numbers are going to be. I have a draft that says the numbers may be one thing or another. It's going to be revenue neutral. Senator, is there a real fiscal impact that we can examine in the short time we're going to hear this bill?
So, Senator Garner, I think those who filed bills and had them amended, especially with large fiscal impacts, are familiar with the fact that every time you amend one of these, DFNA has to go and adjust their fiscal impact. And what they do is they basically amend their fiscal impact to match their amendment. At the committee, I had the fiscal impact and I had the amendment to what it is going to do, what the new table and the new chart is going to be, and I have a copy of it right here, and anybody who wants to see it. But let me just go beyond that. As I said in committee, the fiscal impact of the tax cuts was in the newspaper Thursday after our press conference. Those numbers did not change. The only thing that took us a little while to nail down was what's going to change with regard to the revenue because of the smoking change and because of the vaping change. And it is a big number, so it was important to be right. And so DFNA worked Saturday and Sunday, and we came in early Monday morning and we finalized it, got a table
all
presented
weekend
to
long,
make sure
baby.
that the right side of the equation was correct, because that required us to adjust the amount of transfer to general revenue.
They worked all weekend on this, so you know you can trust it.
The fiscal impact is available.
It's the government.
The final amended version that will be
government
posted on the
knows.
website, I don't know when DFNA will finally get it posted.
So there's not a current version for public consumption. Is that correct?
Yes, it's right here, and it was handed out to the members of the committee.
Thank you.
Meaning on the
Any other
website.
questions?
There was no version on the website.
Any questions? Anyone wish to speak
Watch this.
on the bill? Senator Garner is going to speak against the bill.
Watch this right here. This is rich. Now, you can't see what's going on, but Garner's putting his thumb right in Hendren's face as he's walking down, like the entire time.
I'm not going to dive into numbers. I wish we had accurate ones.
It was funny.
The public had accurate ones to look at. What I want to think about is real poor people that this is supposed to help. Real people in our district. Those numbers that Senator Hendren said this will do for that working mom, it's going to be $692 extra a year for her. Every paycheck she gets, if she's a smoker, will be decreased. Let me tell you how real poor people work. They don't wait to the end of the year to do their dividends or to save a little bit then when we get this tax return back. They live week by week, by paycheck. That disposable income, the stuff they spend their kids on, is this money that we're taking from them every single week. And at the end of the year, you give them more money. Maybe, I don't know, it's $200 less, $200 more. We don't know. When that mom doesn't have that extra money because she has this habit, that's going to affect her. Real people. Small business owners. You know how many vape shops are going to shut down immediately after this comes into law? There's a part in the section, page 6, 16 through 18. Wholesale will be taxed immediately. The guys in committees were saying $40,000, $30,000, $100,000 tax burden the day this passes. These aren't the wealthy people who can afford to write a $100,000 check to the state of Arkansas. You know what they're going to do? They're going to fire employees. They're going to shut their shops down. They're going to be hurt. Gas station owners. I live 20 minutes from the Louisiana border. Do you understand how different a carton of cigarettes will be after this? In Louisiana, it's going to be $1.08. Ours is going to be $2.40 after this passes. Every carton, I'll save $10 to $12 to $13 driving 20 minutes away. Who do you think that's going to affect? Missouri? Theirs is 0.17 cents per pack. Where do you think those people will go? $22 plus per carton will be driven across state lines. That's the real impact of this bill. That's the real thing. If you want to stop smoking, let's do it. If you think we're paying too much cost on Medicaid since we expanded it to everybody, let's reform Medicaid when it comes to smoking. Let's get people who do this bad habit to have to pay for it themselves rather than this smoking thing that goes against every person in the state of Arkansas. I wish we could say we were robbing Peter to pay Paul, but we're robbing Peter, Paul, and all the rest of the disciples to pay him at the end of the year. Senator Henry said something when he started his speech a while ago, and I want you to listen to the word he said because it's important. It slipped up on him. Redistribution. This is redistributing wealth from all to a few. This is a bad policy. This will hurt the people we're claiming that we care about.
That's exactly right.
And at the end of the year, when they get that check, okay, good. They'll pay off their credit cards they had to run up while they had to have less income. They'll do more with it. Let's get a bill that we can address. Let's work with the vaping shops and the other ones to decrease the amount of kids' usage. I heard the shop owners, they are stringent on not giving to kids. Only thing you're going to do is hurt state government, hurt the people we represent. This is a bad bill. Thank you.
That's Senator Trent Garner.
Anyone else was speaking?
And he, what he was doing there, essentially say, hey, listen, Hendren slipped up. He used the word redistribute. That's what this is. He's saying that the border communities. I mean, if you're in Mountain Home, you can hop on over to the Missouri line no problem. If you're in Fort Smith, you can go over to Oklahoma. And I don't know what Oklahoma's is actually. Oklahoma may be about the same. After this passes, I'm not sure. But, Louisiana, Missouri, that's what people are going to do. They're just going to drive and get their cigarettes cheaper. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. All of his arguments, all of Jim Hendren's arguments can be easily met. They can be debunked. Did you hear what Senator Garner said, though? Oh, we got to go to break. But he said... He said, we've expanded Medicaid to everybody. Why don't we reform Medicaid? You can make people pay more if they smoke. But I thought we had a task force on Medicaid reform. Back in a minute.
For those Arkansans that drive inexpensive vehicles, and of course, there are people that buy new vehicles, but everybody drives a used one. And for those that are on a tight budget, when you go to buy a vehicle, you have to make a down payment. You have to get your insurance in effect, which costs money. Then 30 days down the road, you've got your first payment due. And so when it comes to registering and paying that sales tax, that's another $400 or $500 out of your pocket when you're buying a $7,000 vehicle. And I think once we've taxed that automobile 3 or 4 or 5 times or more, it's time to let it go and quit trying to collect the tax. After all, we collect property tax every year anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly right. That's another whole thing.
On the same automobile. So, you're taxed when you earn the money, you're taxed when you spend the money, and you're taxed on everything you bought with it every year.
Unbelievable. Have you gotten any pushback at all? And I think you might if people get desperate. But I know you've disclosed this. You are, as a professional,
determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Now, we ran out of time because Senator Bob Ballinger made some good points, too. He went down there. We'll actually probably play some of that for you at the towards the second hour. But we're going to be talking to a vape shop owner, Scout Stubbs. She'll be on the program here in just a little bit. Also, Jan Morgan going to be calling in. Always great to have her on. It is what it is. I mean, at this point, we are openly trying to stop Arkansas politicians moving us closer to socialism. I mean, I really think that's what this whole battle is. And for the record, let it be known, in 2013, Republican establishment said, hey, we're conservatives. We disagree on this one thing, Medicaid expansion, private option, which is one thing, but we agree with you on everything else. Let the record show that is not true, because we disagree on tax increases, gas tax, cigarette tax. What else? Remember the tire tax, right? We disagree on your philosophy for budgeting. We disagree with you on spending. You don't get spending under control. You spend too much. I mean, the list actually is extensive if you actually sit down and write it out. We got one more hour coming your way next.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 1230 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
in the car business. And I know you've disclosed that. You get any pushback on that?
Yeah. No, I didn't. And, of course, I kind of got a few surprised looks in committee because I'm one of only two members in the House that does not pay sales tax on used cars. And so the jaw dropped. And I'm like, because I'm a used car dealer, I don't pay the tax. I can put a dealer tag on and drive the automobile without registering and paying a tax on it. So, I understand that people may think that it's because I'm a car dealer. Well, it's because I'm very familiar with those situations where people are trying to buy transportation. They need dependable transportation in order to get a job in Arkansas. It's a rural state. You really can't catch a bus or walk to work in most places. You need transportation. And if we're going to have dependable employees, they need a dependable ride to work. And so, I've seen those situations where it's so hard on people's budget to try to, shake loose enough cash to make the down payment, get the insurance, and then the sales tax hits them 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road because they have 30 days to pay the sales tax. Well, then the first payment rolls around, and they've just, for the last 30 days, they've had all of their cash, sucked out of their pocket. And it makes it very hard on struggling families.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up at the end there, struggling families. This is a pro-family piece of legislation because this is enabling, this is for your working families out there who do live paycheck to paycheck. This is a huge, huge thing if this were to go into law.
I think that's absolutely who's going to benefit the most. Now, I'm not usually for carving out segments of the population to get benefits. So, it's available to anybody that wants to buy the vehicle. They don't have to be a struggling family. And as you know, there are some very successful people that choose to drive less expensive vehicles and maybe buying it for a child that's going off to college or buying it. I've had several people come in to buy vehicles for their employees that needed a ride. So, anybody can take advantage of it, but I do think, it helps the struggling families.
Let me ask you this.
More than anything.
Let me ask you this. As a car dealer and a legislator, why are we taxing cars twice at all? Why not pay sales tax the first time you buy a car new?
Well, and it's a long story it goes back beyond 1991, but 91 is when Bill Clinton's administration passed the tax that was for all used cars. But what had happened is we had taxed new vehicles and not used ones for many years. And the theory was, we only need to collect tax once. Well, they realized out-of-state vehicles coming into Arkansas, we didn't get the once. And so what they would do is if it came into Arkansas on an out-of-state title, they would collect sales tax one time. And so used vehicles that had an Arkansas title would not be collected. And if they had an out-of-state title, they got collected that one time. Well, the state of Arkansas was sued, and that was an import tax, which is unconstitutional. And so when the state of Arkansas lost that lawsuit, Bill Clinton's answer was, we'll tax all used cars every time.
And here we are. Here we are now. Okay. Well, I appreciate that there's an exemption at all, again, right now below 4,000, but this would take it 7,500 and below, right, again?
That's correct.
Wow.
And the exemption had, several years back, we got the exemption passed at 2,500. And then about 5 or 6 years, I guess it's about 8 years ago maybe, we raised it to 4,000. And, of course, vehicles increased in value. And after that Cash for Clunkers fiasco, well, we suffered a lot of appreciation, but inflation, a lot of inflation in the cheap used car market. And so, it really takes 7,000 or 7,500, to get a good, dependable ride. And I think, people trying to get on their feet and get a new job or whatever, they need dependable transportation.
Absolutely. Again, we're talking with State Representative John Payton. This is a great piece of legislation. You need to call your senators because this is with 83 co-sponsors in the House. This is going to sail through. You need to call your senators and you need to tell them, hey, we want you to pass this piece of legislation. We know it's going to cost $12 million. We can absorb that. Now, on that note, Representative Payton, When it came to the highway funding bill, there were tax increases.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
You know, if there's ever been an example of elitism and how elites in this state do not care about the little guy, you need to go and watch the committee meeting between Jim Hendren and the small business owners who are in the vaping industry, and watch his reaction as he has to sit there as business owner after business owner comes to the table and talks about how his legislation to tax vaping, raise taxes on cigarettes, and put in the Democrat policy goal of an earned income tax credit welfare program would hurt their business when you the entire package, you know, the bill. And it's just fascinating to me how I guess Republicans are for business, but you have to be the right kind of business. Yesterday, when I was at the Marble Palace, I met a vape shop business owner. Her name is Scout Stubbs. Scout joins us on the phone right now. Scout, how are you this morning?
Hey, I'm doing well.
Scout, I know that you're disappointed in the outcome. You know, it only got 18 votes, but it does pass, goes on to the House, where I think it will have more trouble. Have you been to the Capitol very much? I mean, was this one of your first times there?
No, we were there last session doing similar things. At that point, we didn't have our nonprofit started, and so it was a lot more difficult communicating with some of these Democrat legislators that our products are harm reduction, our products are 95% safer than cigarettes, because if you go in there, the business owner saying that out there saying, oh, you're just trying to peddle your product. But going in there this time, we have our association. There's close to 300 shops in the state of Arkansas, and so we're trying to go up there and represent all of their interests, and they're all small business.
And they know, obviously, that this bill is going to devastate their businesses. I mean, that was your testimony. At one point, I was sitting next to you in the gallery, and at one point, I think Senator Hendren said something, and there were several people in the gallery that just turned around and went, well, that's socialism. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I know that this bill is dressed up as appealing to lower-income families, but it's redistribution of wealth. And I'm no expert in tax policy. All I'm an expert in is the vaping industry. And I know what it will do to our business. But, yeah, socialism at its finest is going to destroy small businesses in the state of Arkansas.
What will this do to your business? Now, first of all, tell us the name of your vaping business.
So my husband and I started Drippers Vape Shop in Greenbrier, Arkansas, with a maxed out credit card and an American dream. We started with one shop, and now we own a chain of 5 across the state. And our entire goal was to help people quit smoking. It's how I quit smoking. It's how my husband quit smoking, and it's how about 10,000 of our customers have quit smoking. And that's just in one shop. I know the story is the same with shop owners across the state. And a lot of people don't know what vaping is, but it's a consumer-driven industry, not pharmaceutical, not tobacco industry-driven industry, made by smokers for smokers who want to quit smoking.
And I see Drippers Vape Shop. You have a location in Greenbrier, Cabot, Heber Springs, Hot Springs. Pretty successful.
Yeah, and El Dorado. Yep.
And El Dorado. And so, so there's talk about firing employees if something like this happens, or closing altogether. I mean, you think vape shops will close? What would you guys have to do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this isn't a 5%, 10%, 20% tax. This is a 67% tax, whereas before we were only paying sales and use tax. Now, I'm not naive. I know how Arkansas politics works. I know that maybe we're going to have to pay a small percentage of what they call a luxury tax on someone that wants to quit smoking, but a 67% tax is something that's going to close a lot of the shops in Arkansas. Now, we tried to clarify with Jim Hendren, the sponsor of the bill, whether that 67% tax applies to existing inventory, more like a floor tax. And he said over and over again, oh, that's not what that means in the bill, but it's written there, black and white, that it applies to existing floor tax. And if that's the case, I know a shop in Conway that's going to owe $25,000 in 2 months after this bill passes. Another friend of mine who owns 8 stores is going to owe $268,000. That's enough to close the door on any shop. Now, let's say that Jim Hendren is right, he's a man of his word, and there is no floor tax. That means that I'm going to have to compete with online sale prices. I'm also going to have to raise my prices to my customers. And so they're either going to go online, or in border towns, they're going to go to the next state over where there's not a 67% tax on vapor products.
67% tax.
67%.
And here's the thing, he's talking about how this earned income tax credit is going to be revenue neutral. Well, if you guys all shut your doors or and have less business, then that's not the case.
Yeah, he's going to be in big trouble when the money that he was supposed to get from vape shops is no longer there, because 2/3 of us, 3/4 of us have all closed in the state.
Wow. And I was talking to you about this. I think this is also really just kind of cloak and dagger legislative sleight of hand, too, because the bottom line is they know more and more people are going to vaping to quit smoking, and they're going to see this loss in revenue. And so they're actually coming after you guys, to maintain, like they're using kids. They're saying kids are doing it, it's terrible and everything else. But the government actually needs the revenue source from people smoking. And so now that people are starting to vape, they're like, we better go after the vapors.
That's exactly what's happening, and it's sad. It's a sad thing for public health if that's the cause that everyone's coding around, is that it's for public health and to encourage people to quit smoking. Well, you're increasing the tax on cigarettes by 20%. A separate bill has increased the minimum price of cigarettes by, I think, 1%. But all of that is to generate revenue for the state. And so, yes, they realize that they're losing some of that cigarette money, and they're going to try to get vapor money at the exact same rate that they get deadly combustible cigarette taxes at.
In his presentation yesterday, Senator Hendren talked about the former Philip Morris company and Juul and the tobacco, big tobacco. Talk about how what you guys do is different than what Juul is doing, and what you guys are doing are getting lumped in, and your reputation is being tarnished with the nicotine delivery system Juul.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because most people don't know the difference. Juul is partially owned by Altria, which owns Marlboro. So technically they are a big tobacco company. They started out in Silicon Valley as just their own thing, harm reduction, just like we are, but they've grown into such a popular device. I have to give credit where credit's due, that they're capturing that smoker at that gas station that's making an impulse buy, and they're saying, you know what, I'm not going to buy cigarettes today. I'm going to buy this Juul instead. And so they get started on vaping in gas stations, but I think they eventually enter the vape shops where they realize they can step down their nicotine and have a better choice of flavors, devices, It's more of a one-on-one interaction at vape shops. Juul pods are sold now at 50 milligrams per milliliter of nicotine. That's a lot. That's more than any vape shop is going to sell you. I start out people at the highest 18 milligrams per milliliter. And then after a few months, you can step that down to 12, 6, 3, and then eventually 0. And I stopped seeing that customer. And that's a good thing. That's because they've quit vaping, they've quit smoking altogether. Now, I think that Juul's business model differs from ours. I think that it's just another big tobacco ploy to keep people addicted to nicotine. And that's sad, too. And I don't want to get confused with Juul because we're not the same. We're not distributed through the same channels. We don't work the same as big tobacco conglomerates. We're small business owners, and a lot of us make our own e-liquid in the shop. And if we don't, we're ordering it from the United States, from other states surrounding. And it's just a completely different business model. We're not out trying to hook kids on nicotine. If anything, vape shops are doing the best job at IDing minors and making sure that these products stay out of our schools.
And it's the Juul that's really getting into schools because it's small. Yeah. It's smaller than the device that you guys typically sell, which is much harder to hide. And my hope thing is right now, well, until Arkansas just got involved. I mean, Arkansas is now raising the age to buy tobacco from 18 to 21. And they said because of the kids smoking in high school. I said, well, there's not very many 18-year-olds that are in high school. And so if 16, 17-year-olds are still smoking and they're already breaking the law, how does raising the age, they're still going to get the cigarettes, they're still going to get the nicotine, they're still going to get the Juul. And so it's just really it's just this big government. And you mentioned something. We're talking with Scout Stubbs. She's the owner of Dripper's Vape Shop. You can look that up online, Dripper's Vape Shop. There's locations across Arkansas. You brought up the idea that Juul is, with their economic model, they're actually keeping people addicted to nicotine, and that's why you have the cigarette company buying such a big share in it, whereas you guys are the good guys providing a service, helping people stop their addiction to nicotine, and yet the government's coming after you, Scout.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic when you put it like that. But that's exactly what's going on. The FDA Commissioner Gottlieb, who's actually on his way out, recognized that vape shops are doing the best job. Their data shows that we card the best. We're doing the best at denying the sale to minors. The Juul product is the one that is failing compliance checks at gas stations, convenience stores, stuff like that. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I think that vapor products are a miracle technology of the 21st century. But I don't like being lumped in altogether with a product that's being found in schools, found in lockers, and being hidden on campuses, because I don't agree with that, and I think that our stores are different.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, Senator Trent Garner did an excellent job trying to get the Senate to recognize that, how you guys are very stringent in how you card people. The bill did pass. Again, this was you say 67% tax increase on you guys?
Yes.
67% tax on vape, $1.20 increase on your cigarettes per pack, and then the earned income tax credit, which is a very, very liberal progressive policy at this point. That's what's used. And so now, Scout, it goes on to the House Committee. We hope the House Committee on Revenue and Taxation. Now,
yes, I have confirmed that it is the Revenue and Tax Committee.
Okay. So what do you think? I mean, I have kind of heard that they don't have the vote. They don't have 11 votes. They don't have enough votes to get it out. What have you heard?
Similar. I'm hoping that we can educate enough lawmakers on that committee to say, hey, we're not the same as cigarettes. Like a lot of legislators are going with their heart. They're voting with their heart, and they're saying, hey, I hate cigarettes. My mom died of lung cancer. We hate cigarettes. But they don't understand that our product is different. They don't understand that we're not the ones trying to addict kids to nicotine and keep them smokers forever. That's the opposite of our goal. And so I think if enough lawmakers understood that we could defeat this bill in committee easily.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I hope that it does, and we're going to be monitoring it. And Scout, it was great to meet you yesterday, and best of luck to you in your business. And I did mention to you, I'll give you the last word, but I did mention to you, if more people understood your business, you guys are just kind of at an information deficit with these lawmakers, kind of like what you were saying. And so that's why it's easy to tax you and attack this specific small group of business owners, because a lot of people don't understand your business.
That's exactly right.
All right, Scout Stubbs, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll see you later.
Yes, Drippers Vape Shop is the name of the company. You can check them out if you want to stop smoking. You want to start that process. Their locations in Greenbrier, Cabot, Heber Springs, Hot Springs, and El Dorado. Sounds like Drippers would be a good place to start if you're wanting to stop smoking a combustible tobacco, cigarette, or cigar or something. We are going to take a break. Back in just a moment.
Straight up or down tax increases that raise the cost of gas at the pump for the people, as well as referring a constitutional amendment to keep a half-cent sales tax that's set to expire. Now, you went to the floor, I believe, to speak against it, and you just basically said, we don't need to be doing this because we've had $500 million of revenue growth in a very short amount of time, and we could just use the increase in revenue that we're already getting from the people to pay for our roads. But that kind of fell on deaf ears, didn't it?
It did. And, of course, like I said, I got elected in 2013, and there was a proposal that year by John. Oh, my goodness, I'm drawing a blank on his last name. But anyway,
Jonathan Barnett? You're talking about Jonathan Barnett?
Yeah, Jonathan Barnett.
Yep.
And so, that proposal would have taken revenue growth and put it to the highways. And now, 6 years later, that problem would have been solved because we've had the revenue growth that would have taken care of the highways. But it was rejected.
Money, power, prestige, essence. Available now from aristocrats serving Arkansas. From Zenata Rhino Collection. The fragrance of backroom deals. Nepotism. The aroma of higher taxes. Subliminal deception. Deep state. Ace. Made right here in Arkansas by a taxpayer-funded Chinese factory. Every bottle carefully crafted for you. Gender neutral. Nothing says aristocrat like Essence of Bureaucrat. Essence of Bureaucrat by Asa.
Available now in the Marble Palace gift shop.
Paul Harrell parody.
All right, welcome back. 870-275-9799. If you want to sound off on the program, we got Jan Morgan coming up here at 7:33, so you don't want to miss that. It'd be interesting to get her take. You know, she did a Facebook Live video on the dark money bill. This was Jimmy Gazaway's bill that I don't even know if he's running it anymore. Honestly, I'm not really sure. This would have required disclosure of donors in judicial election if you say something to influence the perception of a judicial election. Matter of fact, hey Joe, can we refresh that? If you'll go to YouTube and pull up the Conduit News YouTube, because I clipped out Doug House's. Just type in like Douglas House Conduit News and it should come up. I want to listen to that real quick because we've got it really, really easy. I think, yeah, Tim on Facebook writes, I think he's pulling it. That's what I have heard too, just kind of through the grapevine. And I think it has a lot to do with Douglas House because this is what the bill was before they started thinking about amendments. They were doing this. Listen to this.
Recognized it exactly what it is. It is an opportunity
Back it up to the beginning here, because I think we're in the middle of it here. Yeah, here we go. So this was last week that this happened.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Thank you, colleagues. I was one of those 2 votes. This bill was brought to us by the Arkansas Bar Association. It was handed to me before it had any sponsors. I took one look at it, recognized it exactly what it is. It is an opportunity for them to find out who is speaking for or against one of the judicial candidates, one of their friends that they don't like, so they can find out who they are. They can track them down, intimidate them, protest them, mess with their credit, bring lawsuits according to this bill, and do all of the bad things. To correct something that you asked about, Representative Brown, absolutely. These 501c3 groups need to be concerned. Arkansas Right to Life, Arkansas Family Council, unions, police associations, fire associations, Family Council, Conduit for Action, Judicial Watch, Arkansas Faith and Ethics. All of these organizations, according to this bill, if they
Well, what are we at? Do we have an internet problem? What is this?
Publish anything that attempts to influence the perception of a candidate, then they have to disclose who gives them money. What does that mean? Attempt to influence the perception of a candidate. Why else does Family Council publish that big long list? Because they're saying these are people that think like we do and we like them. That's what they're doing. They're influencing the perception. Now they've got to go back and disclose everybody that's donated to that organization. Oh, and by the way, under this same bill, you are all members of the press and publishers, according to the definitions. Do you ever put something out on Facebook? Are you trying to influence others? Do you ever mention a judge's name or a candidate's name? Of course you do. Yeah, I know Judge so-and-so. That's a good person. He's a great judge, or she's a great judge, as the case may be. Or I go to church with them, or their kids play with my kids in baseball. Transparency. Folks, government has to be transparent. Private individuals have the right to be private. Transparency is for government, not for private individuals. If you want to give money to the ACLU because you believe that they stand for liberty, give money to the ACLU, but you might not want to broadcast it to the whole world. But ACLU might come out and say, you know what, we don't really like such and such a candidate for a judge because they tend to rule against the things that we intend to.
That was Douglas House last week. I think this bill, I don't think it's, I don't know, maybe now somebody else might pick it up and run it. They might run, they could do a lot of things. There's no cutoff date for filing, so there's somebody in the Senate that could be a fan of what was attempted to be done. Maybe they'll file it in the Senate. In other news, the Washington County Republican Committee of Arkansas has issued a resolution urging the senators and state representatives of Washington County to vote against tax increases, whether or not they're revenue neutral. They're essentially saying enough is enough, even if you could argue it's revenue neutral. They'll always say it's revenue neutral, but will it actually be revenue neutral? Anyway, so vote against, work against these bills. And, of course, yesterday was a disaster. Jim Hendren getting what he wanted once again, a Democrat earned income tax credit policy, giving the Democrats what they've wanted for years.
It was rejected. And I was just trying to make the point using these same numbers about revenue growth. We do not need new taxes. We just need to prioritize the money that we're getting in. And we don't even have to take any money away from anything. Just divert the revenue growth. So, it's been averaging for the last 8 years over $100 million a year in revenue growth. That could have been all diverted to highways.
Do you think that it's because, like you said, in this case, in this scenario, you wouldn't even have to take any revenue from anywhere. You could just do it with the growth in revenue from the people that's just naturally coming in because of the economy. Do you think though that there are places? I mean, right now, I think it's interesting that there hasn't really been anything proposed about maybe cutting 1% from each, agency. Is that true? Is there really nowhere in state government? Are we really expected to believe there's nowhere where there's fat to be trimmed?
I just cannot believe that anybody believes that. There are some people that argue it, but anybody that has run a business or a budget, you pretty much know that you have some low trees in there that you could trim to achieve 1% or more. And then the bigger the budget is, the more opportunity you probably have to find that. And so obviously I believe there are efficiencies that could be found. It takes desire to do that. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, the desire to be friendly and not make waves overrides the desire to cut those budgets. So
I got one more question, and I know we weren't scheduled to talk about this, but I did text you privately about it. Charles Blake has this bill that would, redesignate one star on the Arkansas flag from the Confederacy to Native American tribes, I think. I got a tweet I'm looking at from Jesse Tenur that Charles Blake added bipartisan co-sponsors, Republican Jimmy Gasway and Senator Breann Davis, now on board with this plan to redesignate the star. I know this failed at a committee. It's a committee that you're on miserably. Do you think this has a chance of now passing?
Well, I've not heard anything from my colleagues in that committee that would give me the indication that it's gained any votes. And, we listened to the arguments for a little over an hour, and it only received, I think it was 4 or 5 yes votes out of a committee of 20. And so, we actually made a motion to table it rather than spend another hour because our agenda is quite long and there's bills that have not been heard. And so we were...
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, good morning, Arkansas. Thanks so much for being with us today. I want to go now to Jan Morgan. It's always great to have her back on the program. Of course, she's a national political analyst, jack of all trades. Jan, welcome back.
Hey, great to be with you, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jan. Thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. I actually got to see one of your Facebook Live videos from last week. You were doing coverage of the 92nd General Assembly at the Capitol, at the Marble Palace, and you were highlighting this dark money bill that's not really about dark money. It's just about, making people disclose where they're going to give money to this organization or that organization, an invasion of privacy. You did a great job bringing that to the public's attention. Jan, are you there?
Yes, I'm getting some feedback. I'm hearing two different things going on. I'm not sure why that is, but
I am so sorry. Well, we can hang up and try to reconnect the call.
Yeah, what I'm hearing, Paul, is a delay. I'm hearing part of what the on-air broadcast, and then I'm also hearing yes, much better.
Okay. Well, we didn't do anything. Is it still a problem? Huh.
Yeah, let me call you back.
Okay, yeah. Right, let's try to reconnect the call here because, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We'll be right back with Jan Morgan here. Apparently, we have a connection problem, and it's an issue. Make sure that it's okay before you put her through. Yeah, let's make sure everything's good. We don't want to get this. We don't want to get a bad connection here. That's no fun. If you're just joining us, by the way, we got a few headlines here. Panel backs the Senate proposed online sales tax levy. We haven't really covered that much. It was kind of snuck through, in my opinion. So the online sales tax is now going to be heard in the Senate, I guess probably Monday, but it passed through the Senate committee the other day, and so that was I didn't expect it to run. I thought Bart Hester was going to run this bill next week. I could have sworn that's what was said. And I know things are fluid, but the bottom line is, from what I can tell, there was really no discussion in the committee of whether or not we should pass an internet sales tax. There was more discussion on the corporate income tax reforms that they put in there, an amendment, and there's some car wash provisions, you know what I mean? And so I'm not really even sure. I don't. I guess to me, the fact that there wasn't any discussion on the marketplace idea, because what they're going to say, we're saving Main Street businesses and that sort of thing. And we're not saving Main Street businesses. Passing an internet sales tax, it just gives more money to the government. That money doesn't go to Main Street businesses. You know what I mean? So, anyway, it's pretty interesting. The telephone number, again, 870-275-9799. You can call or text us. So we have Jan back. Okay, Jan, tell us a little bit about this dark money legislation that I think you had a big hand in stopping.
Well, you say I had a big hand in stopping. I don't feel that way. The way I look at it, it was the people that stopped it. I simply just went on the air live and told people about it. But here's the big thing. We know that the people in this state have learned that often our state agencies can be weaponized against us. Some of us have directly been victims of that. And when people, for example, when I was running for office, when people would say, Jan, I really want to donate to your campaign, but I can't do that because then my name will go on the list, and they will go over that list, and my business or I and my family will be retaliated against by state agencies. And that is a very real threat, and there is history to prove that it's happened to people, and that's what was going to happen with organizations through this bill. If you donated to an organization, and that organization spoke out in favor of a candidate who is running for the judicial branch of our government, then suddenly your name and that information could become public. And that's a very dangerous place to go, and it would have changed. I think it would have affected financially all those organizations that we donate to in order to help candidates without our privacy being invaded. So, that was my concern. And all the people who I asked to call, I went live, people called, and they were able to stop it because, as you know, the reason the bill was pulled, they said, was because of too much opposition.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that particular bill is dead. Now, they may bring it back. That's always a possibility. There's no filing deadline.
I've been told that they're working on amending it, right. Mm-hmm. Just like they brought back the flag bill again. They brought that back again, but yesterday. Mm-hmm. So, as we know, just because they pull it today doesn't mean it's not going to come back tomorrow.
We're talking with Jan Morgan. Now, Jan, I'd like to know, just generally, I know you're down there, so am I, but what do you think, how are things going so far down there? Is it a mixed bag, or is it mostly bad, or is it mostly good? What do you think?
I would give it a 25% good, 75% bad. And when I'm rating what Republicans have been able to accomplish, because we do have control of the House and the Senate. We have the opportunity to do some incredible things for the people of this state. And rather than accomplish those things, we've done well on pro-life. We've done well on some of the social issues. But when it comes to cutting spending, cutting taxes, and shrinking the size of state government, the size and scope of our government, we have not done very well. And I feel like, Paul, I'm on the Titanic with a bucket, and I'm trying to shovel out water. That's the way I feel about it, and it's almost overwhelming. And especially, you know how it's going to get the next couple of weeks as the session comes to an end. There are going to be so many bills coming so quickly that there's no way. It's almost impossible to stay on top of it all now.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens on purpose because they know you can't be everywhere.
One of the things I haven't mentioned on this program at all is this idea of tuition, and is it Dreamers or is it illegals? Are you familiar with it?
Yes, I am. What it is, it's if you are in this state illegally, if you're an illegal alien, you will be able to apply for and be exempt from. Actually, you'll be exempt from out-of-state tuition costs if you want to go to a university in the state of Arkansas. Now, if you're a United States citizen and you live in Texas or another state and you want to come to Arkansas, you have to pay that out-of-state tuition. So you're number one, we are promoting illegal activity. We are promoting the concept of disobeying the laws, immigration laws, by doing this. Number one, and number two, we're not giving the same benefit of out-of-district tuition exemption to U.S. citizens. So that's what the Democrats are doing on the national level. It seems like they're more in favor of everything that's pro-illegal, illegals, rather than pro-U.S. citizens.
So
that's not a place we need to go in Arkansas.
Right. So have we done that?
First time this has been brought up.
Have we advanced this already in Arkansas, and Republicans supported it?
Well, what we've advanced in Arkansas under Ace's administration is, when I ran for office, we talked about the fact that we had two different bills where our senators, Republican senators and representatives, were trying to stop this whole concept of promoting illegal activity. One of them would have prohibited college campuses from becoming sanctuaries for illegals. The other bill would have stopped and prohibited sanctuary cities in the state. Asa Hutchinson, under his administration, was able to stop those bills. Now, here comes this bill, and there's been major backlash from the people of this state to discriminate against law-abiding citizens for the sake of illegal aliens. And yet, here we are again with this bill. And this came up years before. It's a bill that never goes away. I'm hoping it doesn't pass, but it's advancing very quickly.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's something, so there's got to be some common sense. I mean, if you look at things, somebody was telling me this the other day, I know the people voted the minimum wage law in, but Robin Lundstrom, she's trying to tweak it. She's trying to help small business. She gets thrown under the bus. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's a Democrat victory. Then if you get this illegal tuition, bill through, that'll be a huge victory. Then the earned income tax credit yesterday, advancing from the Senate. The Democrat Party of Arkansas could have the most successful session in 20 years when this is all said and done.
You're exactly right. And I laughed, but that's very sad, because here's what's going to happen, Paul. And I said this for the past year and a half. What happens this next 4 years is going to be the legacy of the Republican Party under Ace's administration. And I told the people, I warned the people, if it was as bad as it was the first 4 years, what do you expect is going to happen this next 4 years when he doesn't have to run for re-election? Okay? The problem is the Republican Party will have to run for re-election. The Republican Party is going to be on display. What happened under our leadership? Taxes have increased, government has grown, spending has grown. We are pushing the possibility of increasing spending by over $1 billion by the end of this next 4 years if we don't stop and make some changes and start heading to a different direction. And we're going to pay for that.
They're expecting us to believe that there's just nowhere to cut, Jan. I mean, there's really no...
We know better.
I know.
We know better.
It's so
frustrating. We know better. I was talking to Representative Dan Sullivan the other day, and he said he just sat down and just off the top of his head was able to come up with $170 million in cuts and that's just without even looking at the paperwork, just off the top of his head. $170 million in waste. We have so much waste. But revenue neutral and the shell games have got to stop. Giving people tax cuts at the expense of twice the tax increases is not going to get us anywhere.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. When it's all said and done, I mean, I've got a list going, and I'm trying to anticipate their math because they're going to count the Mike Beebe grocery tax cut. That's legislative plagiarism in their numbers. That's going to, that's the last thing that hits, from his legacy this year. And then they're not going to count the $200 million tax increase they're asking that they've passed to ask the voters to affirm. They won't count that because it hasn't happened yet. I mean, it's going to be very creative, but I bet they'll be able to get their numbers to at least work. I don't think that'll be truthful, but I think, they'll present something that balances and it looks. Of course, actually, Jan, the other day, Governor was on Talk Business and Politics and said that his administration was delivering net tax cuts to the people. And so I don't know how they're going to get the numbers to show that at this point, just so far. So,
Paul, there's going to come a time, and I think it's coming very soon, when the tax burden on the people of this state is going to be so heavy that it doesn't matter what any Republican says. The people are going to say, bull.
Yeah.
I feel it. I can't pay my bill. I can't afford to put gasoline in my car. Ooh. People think, oh, what's a half-cent tax increase? I don't mind a half-cent. What they don't understand yet is that's going to transfer. It's going to cost delivery vehicles more to transport your groceries to the grocery store. You think the grocery store is going to absorb that cost? No, you are. This is going to explode in tax burden on the people. And I think that we're almost there to the point where people are going to say, I can't pay my bills. And
yeah.
You're not going to be able to tiptoe around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're getting to a tipping point. We're talking with Jan Morgan. Now, Jan, the governor earlier said that he was open to red flag legislation. I understand Senator Greg Leding, now Democrat, just filed some red flag laws. What do you think?
I think that it better not pass. It better die in committee is what better happen with it, because as you know, red flag laws are very dangerous. They are a trampling of the constitutional rights of the people, not just the Second Amendment, but the First Amendment, the Fourth, and the Fifth Amendment. That must stop immediately. I don't expect that it's going to go anywhere. Better not.
Up in Maryland, they have some sort of red flag law. I think it was Maryland. Maybe it was, I can't remember, somewhere up in the Northeast. And, the cops, somebody made this anonymous tip, or, they went to the authorities, said, hey, I think this guy's dangerous. And the cops show up at his house to take his guns, and they end up killing the guy because he was like, you're not taking my guns. I mean, this is insane.
Yes, and it turned out, Paul, that in that case, just like, which is a big fear here, is that he wasn't actually mental at all. Someone in his family was angry with him, and it was a false report. Now, they have put in this extreme risk protection orders, what they're calling ours in this state. They put something in there that they say will help guard against that. But the bottom line is it denies your due process. You're guilty until proven innocent. You're out on attorney's fees. You're minus your guns for days until you can get to a court. And somehow you've got to prove that you're not crazy, and you've got to prove that you're innocent of a crime that you didn't even committed. You're not even being accused of a crime, other than somebody says you're mental or you're dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Very dangerous place to go.
Wow. How are things at the gun cave? How are things going there?
Oh, amazing! We've we limped along for the year that I was running for governor. It really hurts when I'm not here because I teach classes here. I teach pistol classes every week. A lot of people feared concealed handgun license instructors around this state. I felt the backlash because I fought for the constitutional carry resolution because it's the right thing to do, and I made enemies with a lot of concealed carry instructors who were scared to death that if people don't have to have a license to carry in this state, and they know that it's going to hurt their business. Actually, the opposite is true. It may hurt their business, but when people are free and they're not having to or required to get a license to carry, more people are carrying out there, and that makes me happy because an armed society is a polite society. And it's sad that all along in this state we've had constitutional carry, and the people have been lied to by career politicians. Yeah. So I'm glad that more people are getting armed and trained.
Yeah, and all those concealed carry instructors have to do is start billing themselves as, hey, if you want to carry a weapon out of state to protect your family when you're traveling on vacation this summer, you need to come, you need to get this concealed carry so you'll have reciprocity with these other states. I mean, that's the way to market it at this point.
Or the real the real way to market it is, instead of preying on people for a license and a permission slip, which is a violation of the Second Amendment, just tell the people the truth, which is what I tell people, and that is, you need to be a responsibly armed citizen. You need to know threat assessment. You need to get well-trained with your firearms. So when a crisis hits, you don't have to second-guess. And as you know, Paul, I was on statewide news with last month because I actually had to pull a gun to save my daughter's life. And I did not have to shoot the guy, although legally I could have. And the TV stations made a big deal about it in the state, saying, wow, you actually had a chance to shoot someone and you didn't do it. Like, as if they were shocked, as if every gun owner in this state is trigger happy, can't wait to use that gun. So the big story was not that, guns save lives. It was that Jan Morgan could have shot somebody legally and she didn't. Mm-hmm. but that was okay because I took the opportunity to get the message out to people that threat assessment, so you don't just, take a class one day and you're ready to save your life and other people's lives with your gun. It is a training process.
I still have to go down there and get schooled about all the things I'm doing wrong when I shoot. I've just got to take your class at some point, Jan.
I'm saving you a spot. Okay. I don't know what the holdup is. You and your wife.
Okay. We've got to make the trip down to Hot Springs and make that happen soon. Jan Morgan, it's always great to have you on. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too, Paul.
All righty. Folks, we're going to put a copy of this video up at conduitnews.com. It's always great to have Jan on. We're going to take a break. Be back here in just a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
It was rejected. And I was just trying to make the point using these same numbers about revenue growth. We do not need new taxes. We just need to prioritize the money that we're getting in. And we don't even have to take any money away from anything, just divert the revenue growth. So, it's been averaging for the last 8 years over $100 million a year in revenue growth. That could have been all diverted to highways.
Do you think that it's because, like you said, in this case, in this scenario, you wouldn't even have to take any revenue from anywhere. You could just do it with the growth in revenue from the people that's just naturally coming in because of the economy Do you think, though, that there are places? I mean, right now, I think it's interesting that, I mean, there hasn't really been anything proposed about maybe cutting 1% from each, agency. I mean, is that true? Is there really nowhere in state government? Are we really expected to believe there's no?
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
We got to rearrange the deck chairs. That's what Senator Hendren was saying. You got to rearrange these deck chairs because, which means redistribute the wealth, by the way. We got to redistribute the wealth because, we've done all of my ideas, and now the lower income people are paying, more of a burden. So that's why we got to redistribute the wealth. We got to rearrange the deck chairs. I don't know why. I mean, you know what? If conservatives were to treat Jim Hendren the way Jim Hendren has treated conservatives, like if conservatives had the power to treat Jim Hendren the way Jim Hendren has treated conservatives, they would have gone up to Jim and be like, all right, your idea to redistribute the wealth and earned income tax credit. You know what? We think that's an idea that's worth talking about, but we don't want to be too hasty. So what we're going to do is we're going to form a task force, and we're going to meet for 2 years, and we're going to talk about rearranging the deck chairs. Where exactly do these deck chairs need to be on the sinking ship of the Titanic? Where do they exactly need to be? We'll have a task force. We'll meet. We'll redistribute the wealth, Jim. We'll do it. We promise. But we can't do it this session. We need to do it next session. So we're going to have a task force, and we're going to meet. We're going to do all this stuff, and then we're going to hire like an ultra conservative Barry Goldwater consultant that disagrees with all of your ideas about a liberal welfare program for the earned income tax credit. But we're going to tell the media, and the media is going to go along saying that we're continuing to work on this, and the goals are what they're really not. And at the end of the task force, 2 years, we're not going to do any of your ideas. We're not going to redistribute the wealth. We're not going to rearrange the deck chairs. But we promise that we'll file bills that have a title that sounds like that we're doing what you originally intended. See, that's how Jim Hendren has treated conservatives with anything that we want to do that's remotely conservative. We got to have a task force. We want to control it. And then you never actually get done what the initial goal was. Anyway, it's frustrating. Matter of fact, I tweeted something about this during the debate. Excuse me. We need a deck chair arranging task force first. Let's wait a few years and be reasonable about all of this. That's exactly right. The Gazette, we didn't cover this. Well, we covered the audio of it. Bill offers cuts for some, would raise tobacco levies. Tax measure narrowly gets Senate's okay. Will it have enough to get to the House? I don't know. I mean, I'll say this. I was really happy with some of these no votes here, but I was displeased with the yes votes, very confusing. I think it was a good vote. I mean, Breanne Davis, Senator Breanne Davis, she voted against this earned income tax credit. That's a great vote that she just made. But I, for the life of me, I can't figure out why some voted for. I mean, but it only got 18 votes. I mean, it only passed with just barely one vote. Ladies and gentlemen, if Jim Hendren gets his way and this earned income tax credit becomes law, the Republican Party of Arkansas has got to ask itself, why did you primary Michael John Gray? Why did the Republican Party of Arkansas back Craig Christensen, who defeated the chairman of the Democrat Party of Arkansas, who was a state representative? They targeted him and won. Why did you do that if then you're going to give the Democrats the policy of an earned income tax credit that they've been wanting for years? Why? Why are you going after vape shops when the vape shops are open to being taxed. They just don't want to be taxed 67%. We'll see tomorrow. What's today, Thursday? We'll see tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday, folks. Have a great day. NCAA March Madness. Don't get distracted at work.